All right, welcome to another edition of The Rundown. We got a packed show today. I'm going to be talking about the Thursday night game and a few of the games going on Sunday. But first, let's start off with Thursday night football between the Steelers and the Bengals. The Bengals won 33 to 31, and I thought the Steelers would win this game pretty handedly. I thought that Mike Tomlin was being a little bit overboard, talking about how the general manager of the Browns was smarter than him for trading Joe Flacco from the Browns to the Bengals. And I'm thinking, why is Mike Tomlin getting so bent out of shape for? Joe Flacco is 40 years old. He got benched in Cleveland for Dylan Gabriel, and he's not going to be able to do much in Cincinnati either, even though they have like some great talent in the receiver spot. But evidently, I was wrong because Joe Flacco lit it up. He was 31 for 47 for 342 yards. And the Steelers, they went up 10-0, and Aaron Rodgers is looking like the old Aaron Rodgers. He's throwing bombs down the sideline to DK Metcalf. He's running around in the pocket. He's finding Jonnu Smith in the end zone. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to put one on Cincinnati. Second quarter, though, Cincinnati finds something. Chase Brown starts running the ball really, really well. And it was crazy how well he was able to run the ball, because before then, he was averaging like 2.7 yards a carry, and this game he had 11 carries for 108 yards, and Cincinnati gets a touchdown, and all of a sudden it's 10-7, and then the momentum starts to shift. The Steelers get the ball. Aaron Rodgers just throws the ball up in double coverage, and it gets picked off. He probably didn't see it. I don't know why he exactly threw that ball. I guess he just wanted to throw it deep, and he just trusted his receiver will be there, but he definitely wasn't. Bengals come down, get a touchdown, and it's a 14-10, and then you won't believe it. They're going to get another turnover. This time around, though, the Steelers are moving the ball pretty well. And on a 2nd and 13, A-Rod throws a great ball to DK Metcalf, and DJ Turner just rips it out of his hands. And Cincinnati comes down and gets a field goal, and they're up 17-10 going into the half. And all of a sudden, all the momentum is just on their side. They get the ball. Third quarter, they get a field goal. But then Pittsburgh comes back, gets a touchdown, and heading into the fourth quarter, it's Cincinnati 20 and Pittsburgh 17. And A-Rod, he did everything he could to help the Steelers win that game. Other than that first interception, I think he played pretty flawlessly. This loss really isn't on him. He put the Steelers up 31 to 30 with about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on a 2nd and 20, and he threw a beautiful ball to Jonnu Smith, and he took it to the house. And you're thinking, okay, all the Steelers defense needs to do is just come up and get a stop, and they couldn't do that. Joe Flacco, he was getting the ball out to Jamar Chase, and this is the play that pretty much ended the game. It's 2nd and 8 at Pittsburgh's 35-yard line with about minute 40 left, and Joe Flacco throws it down the sideline to T. Higgins with Jalen Ramsey on him. And T. Higgins could have gone in for the touchdown, but he was smart enough to just slide and just run the clock down. Cincinnati smartly, they just run the clock down, and boom, they kick a field goal, and the game is practically over. So smart football on T. Higgins, because if he did run in, he would have given A-Rod a good amount of time, just like maybe a minute and a half left to go down and potentially get a touchdown and win the game. So kudos to him, and that just shows that they're pretty well coached, because sometimes football players are just not aware of things like that. Yeah, both the Unks lit it up. Not much of a pass rush from either team. A-Rod had his time to do his thing. Joe Flacco had his time to do his thing, and I'm really disappointed in Pittsburgh's defense, because I didn't see TJ Watt or Cameron Hayward just make much of an effect this game or have much of an impact. I did see Cameron Hayward get one sack, but other than that, I just did not see much from that Pittsburgh defensive line. And also Jalen Ramsey didn't particularly have a good game either. He got cooked sometimes by T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And Joe Flacco, like I said, 342 yards. He just had a field day. And this was a bad loss by Pittsburgh. I mean, they are in a bad division, but nonetheless still a bad loss. And these next 3 games will prove how good Pittsburgh really is. They got Green Bay and Indy at home, and then they got the Chargers on the road. And last year they started out like 8-2, and then they went on a free fall once they started to face better competition. So we'll see if it's like that this time around this season, where they start off pretty good and then all of a sudden they go on a free fall. And I have the feeling that that's going to happen. I have the feeling that they're probably going to go 1-2 in their next 3 games. Maybe I'm wrong, but if they're able to go 2-1, kudos to them. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I definitely think that Green Bay and Indy can definitely be a loss, or Green Bay and the Chargers, even though the Chargers are pretty banged up. I just don't see a scenario where they're able to win like 2 of the next 3 games, or even all of the 3 games. But we'll see. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, and maybe that defense will come and show out. And the Bengals, they're not dead yet. Because if the Steelers do go on a free fall and Flacco can tread water while Joe Burrow is recovering from that turf toe injury, they got a shot of potentially winning the division and making the playoffs. So it's not entirely over yet for them. I thought it was pretty much over for them, but this may be the win that completely turns their season around and they can get back into it. So we shall see. And if they're able to get back into it and potentially win the division, then Zach Taylor can definitely save his job, and maybe Joe Burrow won't be very disgruntled going into next season, because if they miss the playoffs, it's going to be a bad year for Cincinnati, and who knows what Joe Burrow is going to want to do. I mean, asking for trades is very hard, but that guy wants to win, so we'll see what happens. I want to talk about Washington and Dallas. Both teams are coming off tough losses and games that they should have won. So both teams are just going to come out with that extra urgency. I want to start off with Washington and their offense. We all know Noah Brown isn't playing. Neither is Scary Terry, and his situation is pretty scary because apparently he was supposed to practice this Thursday and he hasn't been practicing. So who knows what's going around with his injury, and it's a little bit mysterious. The Commanders, they brought in Treylon Burks to the practice squad. Yeah, he's going to be a practice squad player, but he's just had an up and down career so far. He was a first round pick in 2022, and so far has definitely been underwhelming. He was dealing with injury stuff this year, but in 5 games, he's had 34 yards. 34 yards in total. And in 2022, he's had 444 yards. And in 2023, he had 221 yards. So definitely not what you want from a wide receiver you draft in the first round. That's something that you want from a wide receiver you draft in the 7th round, who can give you a little bit of production. And that's why the Tennessee Titans parted ways from him. So he's not going to be that much of a help, evidently. And Washington, they got to keep relying on Bill Krosky-Merritt. They got to keep relying on Chris Moore, Zach Ertz, Luke McCaffrey, and hope that Luke McCaffrey can just get you a big play like he does every single game. So far, I feel Jaden Daniels has thrown the ball really, really well considering the circumstances and how much depth they have at wide receiver currently. And I expect him to throw the ball well, because Dallas's defense is really trash. So far, they've given up 309 yards per game so far, approximately. Things can change week to week, and it is a division rivalry game, but I don't know. I just think Washington will still be able to have a pretty good day offensively. Jaden Daniels has been throwing for over 200 yards despite not having much wide receiver talent, and I expect him to do the same. Now, in the past couple games, against the Chargers, against the Bears, Washington has been down 10-0, 13-0. Now, luckily, their defense was able to slow the other team's offense down a little bit, and they were able to come back in the game. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that against Dallas, because if they go down 10-0, 13-0, 14-0, or whatever it may be, it's going to be hard to come back from that, because Dallas has simply just been rolling offensively. They've been averaging 30 points a game pretty much. The only bad game offensively they've had so far in their season was against the Chicago Bears, and I think that was the game that CeeDee Lamb went out. But now CeeDee Lamb, he's coming back. Dak has been balling. He's been making George Pickens look like the next coming of Randy Moss, and with CeeDee coming back and having George Pickens go back to being a number 2 when he looked like a really good number 1, Dak is going to look even better. And I feel Dak is going to get up for this division rivalry game, so I don't think he's going to really play all that bad whatsoever. And I feel that this is going to be another close game. This is going to come down to the wire. I got Washington winning 27-24. And honestly, even if Washington does lose, I'm honestly not that worried, because the division just isn't that good. I mean, the Cowboys are not that good because their defense stinks. The Giants are not that good because, they got a pretty inexperienced team. And the Eagles are, quite frankly, looking a bit fraudulent, and they might go on a free fall. Which brings me to the next game I want to talk about, which is Minnesota and Philadelphia. I mean, luckily for Philadelphia, they got some people getting healthier. They got Landon Dickerson and Quinion Mitchell may be ready. Jalen Carter, who knows if he's going to be ready, but they just got to be better offensively from start to finish. I've talked about this a million times where every single time it feels like whenever they play well in the first half, whether they put up 14 points or 17 points, and they go into the locker room, and in the second half, it just seems like they've forgotten how to play the game of football, and they forgot how to play offense. I mean, in a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jalen Hurts in the second half was 0 of 8 from passing, and surprisingly, they were still able to win that game. But that's because in the first half, they had built up such a big lead that Tampa Bay simply wasn't able to overcome it. Although they almost did if Baker hadn't thrown that costly interception. But it's going to be a tough ordeal for them to do that against a Brian Flores defense, especially since this year, man, Jalen Hurts has looked pretty limited passing, and if he looks bad passing, Brian Flores is just going to make him look even worse. And it really looks like the Philadelphia Eagles, they just go in either extreme. They either run the ball too much or they decide to air it out too much. And I just want them to just have some type of balance offensively. I mean, last night the Steelers ran the ball for 16 times and A-Rod still aired it out 32 times. So it's still possible to air the ball out high 20s, low 30s, and you can still run the ball at a decent clip. So I hope that's something that gets to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, Jalen Hurts did say that him and Kevin Patullo had a great meeting and they got on the same page and everything. And we're about to find out if they did get on the same page or everything, because Brian Flores, he's going to come. And Jalen Hurts is the type of guy to struggle against Brian Flores because Brian Flores likes to play zone defense, and Hurts, while he thrives in man coverage, he can struggle against zone defense. Versus man, Jalen Hurts is 13 in EPA per play. Versus zone, he's 28th in EPA per play. And we'll see if they can figure things out and if Jalen Hurts can hit his deep shots because, like I said, he missed Devontae Smith. He missed A.J. Brown on that touchdown where he threw a pick. And we'll see if he can be more sharper when it comes to his passing game. Now, going to Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell has been tight-lipped about whether or not J.J. McCarthy is going to play or not after being injured with a high ankle sprain. I will say that if J.J. McCarthy does play, Philadelphia absolutely has a better shot of winning because outside of a quarter against Chicago, J.J. McCarthy honestly hasn't looked that particularly great, and he hasn't really set the world on fire. I would understand why they would want to go with a more experienced guy and Carson Wentz, even though Carson Wentz definitely has his own issues and limitations, but he's definitely much more experienced than J.J. McCarthy as it knows how to better operate an NFL offense. But my question is, if they're going to go with Carson Wentz, when are they going to get this guy experience when it comes to playing? He sat last year because of injury, and you'd think he'd be better this time around. And I know that last year he couldn't really practice and whatnot, but at some point I have talked about how, it's good to sit for a year and whatnot, but eventually you just have to get out there and play. And if they're just not willing to go through his growing pains and just let him figure out things while he's trying to grow and develop as a quarterback, just why keep him as a backup? I mean, you may as well just cut your losses if you're just not willing to let him go through his growing pains. I mean, San Francisco wasn't willing to let Trey Lance go through his growing pains, and they just shipped him out of San Francisco. So that's something that Minnesota's going to have to figure out and decide whether or not they see if J.J. McCarthy has enough talent to keep him around as their starting quarterback. But if Carson Wentz plays, I'll say Minnesota wins 23-17. If McCarthy plays, I'll say Philadelphia wins 20-14. 14, excuse me. If JJ McCarthy does play, it's probably going to give Philadelphia more chances to get on the field. I'm assuming that the Philadelphia defense will force more 3 and outs if McCarthy plays and starts. So more time of possession for Philadelphia, and with more time of possession, they should be able to generate a little bit more offense. So we'll see what happens with that. Now I want to talk about Colts and Chargers. Good news for the Chargers: Joe Alt may or may not play. Quentin Johnston practiced. Trey Pipkin still hasn't practiced, so I doubt he's going to play. Considering how battered they are with the O line and with the running backs, having Joe Alt come back, who's one of the best players at his position, will be a huge, huge help, especially against the Colts and their defense. Uh, Herbert and that offense, they're going to have more on their plate once again. Hopefully, Kimani Vidal can get going. He did pretty well running the ball against Miami, and the Colts are a much better defense, but it's not like their running defense has been all that, you know, great and hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. They're giving up more than 70 yards to the first string running back, so Kimani Vidal should be able to do some damage. And Herbert is probably going to have to throw the ball high 30s, low 40s, something like that. But, the Chargers can potentially do something against the Colts defense because they got lit up against the Cardinals with Jacoby Brissett. One thing I will say about the Colts is that they haven't particularly beaten anyone really all that good other than Denver, and that's kind of, a little bit, you know, concerning in terms of wondering whether or not they're that team and whether they'll fall off a cliff or not. I mean, they beat Miami, they beat Tennessee, they beat Las Vegas, they beat Arizona just barely with Jacoby Brissett starting, and those teams aren't world beaters by any mean. But even though this Chargers team is kind of injured, I still think this is a pretty important game. Daniel Jones, he's been phenomenal. He finally has an O line to support him, which he never had in New York. He has a really good running back in Jonathan Taylor to take the load off him. And, for a quarterback, they always say a running game is their best friend, and he has a solid set of wide receivers. So I expect him to continue to play well. The Chargers defense this past couple of weeks hasn't been great. They gave up more than 100 yards to Bill Krosky-Merritt and Devon Achan. And I expect Jonathan Taylor to just run roughshod over them. He's been balling, so I expect him to continue to do that. Tua threw for 205 yards with no Tyreek and not particularly a great offensive line. And same thing with Jaden Daniels. He didn't have any wide receivers, and he still threw some bombs. So I don't know if this is the week where their defense will turn it around because Justin Herbert is just, well, he's more talented than Jaden Daniels for sure. I don't know if he's better than Jaden Daniels. I'd probably say no because Jaden Daniels has won in the playoffs, but he definitely has a lot of talent, and he's definitely better than Tua Tagovailoa. So we'll see, and he definitely can carry a lot on his plate. But Daniel Jones, he's been operating the offense at a smart level, and he's just getting the ball to his playmakers and distributing the ball like a point guard. So I think offensively, the Colts will be able to get the job done and continue their dominance in the AFC as of now. I'm going to go that they win 24-17. Now I want to talk about the Jags and Rams game, and this is another game that really, really interests me. Uh, Jags, it looks like they're making their way through the NFC West. They face San Francisco, they face Seattle, and this time it's going to be in a neutral location. It's going to be a 6:30 a.m. Pacific game in London. The Rams, they had a tied game against the Ravens in the first half until the second half, where they were able to just pull away and kind of blow them out in the second half. And the Jags are, of course, coming off a tough loss against Seattle. I talked a lot about that game. I think this should be a bounce back game for Trevor Lawrence. Sort of, he was getting the hell beaten out of him against that Seattle defense. The Rams' defensive line is pretty good with Jared Verse, Puna Ford, and Byron Young and those guys, but it's not Seattle's defensive line, and the Rams' secondary hasn't been particularly good. I talked about how Jalen Hurts in the second half was able to have a field day against that defense, and that's honestly the only time that Jalen Hurts has really looked good offensively. And Mac Jones also threw the hell out of the ball against that defense when he didn't really have a bunch of threats on the perimeter with Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle being out. But the Rams do have a good run defense, and they should be able to stifle Travis Etienne some. They haven't allowed a back to have a 100-yard game other than Derrick Henry, and the running backs they faced have been pretty good, whether it's Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, or McCaffrey. So I think the run defense is absolutely legit. But for the Jags, I don't know if De'Ami Brown is going to play or not. But I think with Brian Thomas Jr., a little bit of Travis Hunter making a big play here and there, and Tim Patrick, I think that they should still be okay on the perimeter. The Rams, on the other hand, they have a big loss with Puka Nacua being out, and that's been Stafford's security blanket. So far, that man has 616 yards in 6 games, and that's absolutely insane. And it's unfortunate that he got injured. I don't know if he's going to be out for a long period of time or not. But the only other receiver that's really playing better than a Puka Nacua, you could argue, is Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's had about 696 yards in 6 games. So evidently, the Rams are just going to have to rely on Devontae Adams more. And I wonder who else is going to step up in their receivers, because it's not like anyone else has been getting the rock a lot. But I'm sure that McVay and Stafford will be able to figure out something to a degree, because they really like to air it out. And I'm sure McVay will be able to design plays to, like, get his other receivers involved in the game. And they really aren't a run team like some other teams. So they're going to have to find a way to get the passing game going. But I'm going to go the Jags winning this game 21-15. I think the Rams are absolutely going to struggle a little bit with no Puka Nacua. But honestly, if the Rams lose, it's not the end of the world. This division, I feel the NFC West is going to be up and down. Seattle and San Francisco will lose some and win some, and especially San Francisco and all the injuries they've gotten. The Rams aren't in any trouble by any means. So if they lose this game, at worst, they'll be one behind, and they just have to make sure they get back on track after that. So we'll see what happens there. And yeah, that's about all I have for you guys. And yeah, I should be back. I will be back Monday to discuss the games going on Sunday, and I'll also be previewing the Monday night game. So thank you for listening. Enjoy your Friday. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.